It's your boy Lucy.
It's 2004, and Parker, only 24, is hailed as a visionary. He co-founded Napster, the notorious website that gave music away for free. Well connected in the Valley, he knows just the kind of people the ambitious Harvard sophomore needs to meet.
I founded Napster.
Sean Parker founded Napster.
Nice to meet you.
That was supposed to be him. He don't look nothing like Justin Timberlake singing in sync Backstreet Boys now.
Mark Zuckerberg starts Facebook in Boston, but he moves it to Silicon Valley. Why? To access the talent.
Yeah, Zuck right there look like he don't care about nothing but what's on that computer screen, ever. He look like a maniacal dude, though, directly at that computer.
Zuckerberg had come here just with this sort of vague idea that like Silicon Valley was the place to be, and Parker was here already because he already knew Silicon Valley was the place to be, and so because they both thought that, they bumped into each other.
Parker urges Zuckerberg not to go back to Harvard, helps him open a bank account, and introduces him to people with the knowledge and money to help him.
They were able to draw on all of the ecosystem. All of these people brought their Rolodexes and relationships in to help Facebook grow as fast as it could.
Back in the day, all the young people was quiet and listening to the old heads. Think of Alexander the Great and Socrates. Socrates brought up 3 kings in his time. They said he was the greatest mentor of all times. Now all the old heads is looking at the young boys. What the young boy over there creating?
Without that ecosystem, which does not exist in Boston, Facebook would not have grown as quickly.
Silicon Valley is just this petri dish of all of these people together in proximity.
But as recently as the 1950s, the Valley, then known as the Santa Clara Valley, is celebrated for something quite different: its vast expanses of fruit orchards. But gradually, the Valley is transformed.
That's an old school ass machine right there. It was in Roman numerals, the cat, C-A-T.
Its land put to even more profitable use for Cold War industries like missiles and aviation.
Industrial opportunities abound in the Valley of Heart's Delight. Mild climate.
And to build all that hardware, companies bring in thousands of engineers whose enthusiasm for making things proves contagious, especially for their kids, some of whom are about to share.
That kid look crazy. I don't like talking about kids, but that kid looks different.
A lot of the kids on my block, maybe half of them.
That's funny. He look exactly the same. Looking like a bonobo up there. Come on, Steve.
Had parents that were engineers. My father was an electrical engineer, and he took me to work one day, and I liked what he did and thought, wow, I would like to be an engineer someday. And I discovered a journal in the hall closet, and it had an article telling how ones and zeros made up numbers in computers and how you could add them or subtract them, kind of like the way we do with our numbers. And I said, wow, I practiced on paper, and I said, wow, I learned how to do that.
So Steve, a lot of people say he's one of the greatest people of all time. Steve Wozniak, the creator of the Apple computer. Everybody accredits everything to Steve Jobs, but Steve Wozniak is the one who created the first personal computer and brought it to Steve Jobs. And Steve Jobs said, we could sell it. But I believe when kids is children, you look at them like, oh, he's different. He's going to do something different. And that kid, that photo, he was definitely different.
I told myself inside at a very young age, computers are going to be the most fascinating thing in my life. It's going to be my passion for life.
To build his own computer, Wozniak wants tiny electronic parts called transistors that work as amplifiers or switches, but they're not cheap. He gets some timely help from the Polaris missile, which relies on transistors, and is made at the Lockheed factory where his father works.
See, everybody who creates these innovative ideas are in the right place at the right time, or when they do get in the right place in the right time, they're prepared for it. You have to prepare.
My father had connections there with the silicon companies, and he got a donation of 400 cosmetic reject transistors.
Parts that enable the precocious 8th grader to get his start.
And if I hadn't been here in Silicon Valley, it just wouldn't have happened. I would have been reading about things in magazines, maybe educating myself, maybe knowing how to do it, but I was really close to the source.
Wozniak's friend from nearby Los Altos, Steve Jobs, also learns electronics from his dad, Paul Jobs, a machinist. Jobs spends his free time with Wozniak, talking about their favorite subject, computers. In 1975,
Woz is a hairy dude. That dude be looking like a Homo sapien out here. That's crazy. The most primitive looking dude created the most advanced technology.
they joined the Homebrew Computer Club, a magnet for electronics obsessives.
The Valley is so rich in engineering, particularly aerospace engineering at that time, that a club can form in which people can make hobbyist computers using technologies that are from the companies all around them.
You know, if you want to know what's going to happen in 5 years, you don't look in the mainstream, you look at the fringe. And the fringe back in 1975 was the Homebrew Computer Club.
Okay, what is the fringe? Because now you're saying terms that I am not familiar with. We have to consult the Oxford Dictionary, okay, fringe. Because I thought he said friends at the beginning. If you want to predict the future, look at your friends. Okay, fringe. Here it states, it's like, nah, I ain't on the page yet, but I'm getting there, okay? An ornamental border of threads, not ain't it. Chiefly British term for bangs. Okay, we may be closer. The outer, marginal, or extreme part of an area, group, or sphere of activity. His uncles were on the fringes of crooked activity. The fringe, the unconventional, extreme, or marginal wing of a group or sphere. Now, everybody out here talking about AI, and the craziest parts of AI that I can think of right now are simulating human emotion. That's the fringe of AI. You mean to tell me in 5 years that's going to be true? I don't like that.
Everybody that was interested in building computers was at that meeting. And Woz and I always had the coolest stuff there.
At the club, Wozniak shows off a computer he's built. He and Jobs will soon name it the Apple I.
Jobs saw the opportunity with Woz's computer to make this available to large numbers of people at a low cost. And he was saying, let's build these, let's build them in quantity. This would allow people to finally have their own computer.
So Woz had a job with HP, I believe. And on his off time, he used to build his own computers just for his own enjoyment. So he would build things in which he can input, and on the screen gave him feedback of what he just input. He didn't have a keyboard in the beginning, I believe. Steve saw that. Steve said, let's sell that. Because all their friends wanted it. But outside of their friends, they wasn't really selling them like that. Until the first computer store opened in Silicon Valley, the first ever computer store. They said, listen, I'll take 50. And then he said, and I need them assembled and put together because I don't really know what I'm doing over here. I just opened this business on a whim, okay? They went and bought the parts for 100 of the computers, built 50 of them, sent it to them, and then used the money for the extra 50, and they just had an extra 50 computers sitting around. They knew they was destined to do something because the demand was high, but they just didn't really know how to market themselves just yet.
Sure.
The automatic digital computer is a remarkable tool. In its many forms and sizes, it can do almost anything.
At the time, the very word computer evokes the cold, remote world of the government, corporations, and the military. But Jobs and Wozniak are children of the counterculture, blossoming in nearby San Francisco. A movement that rebels against the prevailing uses of technology.
I wanted to be a part of this revolution. The word revolution itself struck me so deeply. I just wanted to change things from horrible Vietnam War type days and everything. I wanted to be a part of it. That's one of the reasons I developed my computer. I wanted to help that revolution go forward.
that countercultural promise of transforming the world into a better place is really strong here. And it's intertwined with technology very, very, very tightly.
The radical counterculture notion was putting a computer on everybody's desk, that you could own one at home, that the man wouldn't have one, you would have one. And that was a radical revolutionary thought.
The idea is that computers can be a tool for liberation.
You know it smelled like dank in that room. They was getting fried.
We're trying to find ways to kind of crack open their minds, break open their way of looking at the world.
For his part, Steve Jobs embraces Zen Buddhism, listens to Bob Dylan, and feels his life has been changed by LSD.
So supposedly Jobs was an LSD smoking, motorcycle riding, Bob Dylan listening. This dude went to study the Buddha with the Buddha. He went up into the hills overseas to get closer to his spirituality. Came back, they said he came back off the airplane, they picked him up, his parent had no shoes on, none of that. They said this dude used to just change his whole diet into a straight fruitarian diet, and he would just only eat fruits. Then he would change to a vegan diet. Then he would, you know what I mean? Like he was a wild dude. Like he was on the fringe, as they call it.
I don't remember how the subject came up, but at one point he turned to me and he said, you know, LSD is one of the 2 or 3 most significant things that I've ever experienced.
Non-traditional experiences have helped greatly in doing the things that I've tried to do.
See, he looked fried right there. You see what I'm saying? You can't say this man wasn't fried. He said he had a big emphasis on the artistic take and also on the usability of his products. Now, his mind was open, and you need to have that. You need to have the polymathy and the flexibility of mind to be able to make an idea that sticks.
In the last 10 years, hitchhiking around the country, or bicycling across Canada, or heading off to the Himalayas, or going to sit in a monastery in Kyoto.
Inspired by these new ways of thinking, in 1976, Jobs and Wozniak start the company whose creations will one day change billions of lives.
So they formed Apple Computer, and they set up shop in Jobs' father's garage, and I went to work there. And we were going to create computers and sell them to people who wanted them.
Soon, a local hobbyist shop orders 50 Apple I's, and they get built in the garage, a Silicon Valley tradition that dates back to the 1930s, when Bill Hewlett and David Packard started tinkering in their own garage in Palo Alto.
I really think the modern world starts right there, in that humble little building.
A building that would soon give rise to one of the most legendary and enduring companies in the history of Silicon Valley.
The technology era, it's evolving. Now, this AI thing is getting a little scary. Let's see where that came from. It's your boy Lucy.